Do you feel like you're barely keeping your head above water? That no matter how hard you try, meaningful progress remains out of reach? Heather gets that. She battled an eating disorder for years before seeking help. Now in recovery, Heather is here to tell you that positive change is possible even when it doesn't feel that way. Join her as she shares openly about her struggles and small triumphs. Fair warning though, Heather doesn't hold back. Her candid story may trigger some. But for those wanting honesty, hope, and healing, this is 1% Better with Heather. The information and stories shared on 1% Better are based on host Heather's personal experiences with eating disorders and mental health challenges. Heather is not a licensed doctor, therapist, dietitian, or other health professional. Her advice and opinions should not be taken as professional medical advice. Please consult your physician or a qualified health provider regarding any medical or health-related issues. 1% Better also contains descriptions of eating disorders that may be triggering for some listeners. Discretion is advised.
Hey there, my little gaffers, and welcome to 1% Better with Heather. I am so excited for this next series of episodes. I will be interviewing Recovery Mom, as she's known on social media. I have a special connection with Recovery Mom. When I was at my sickest, I had a different social media account, and one day this woman popped up. I was immediately drawn to her. I fully believed that this was the universe trying to get my attention. I would watch her videos on loop all day long. She was around my age, she was fully recovered, and she had all the answers. From then on, she became my Yoda. There is no question you can ask her that she does not only have the medical answer to, but the mental health answer as well. She breaks everything down so eloquently with her sweet demeanor. She gives you your medicine with a spoonful of sugar. Recovery Mom is here to give back to the eating disorder community. She is the big sister you need. She has a heart of gold, and I'm privileged to call her my friend. Without any further ado, please welcome Recovery Mom. Hey there, my little gaffers, and welcome to 1% Better with Heather. On today's episode, I have a very special guest. I am so honored for her to be here. My Yoda, as I call her, Recovery Mom. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you have me.
Oh, I'm just so excited for, who knew back in October 2022 when I'm bawling my face off and I find a girl on TikTok who doesn't even live in my country, and I'm like, help me. And then you write me back, and we private messaged a lot. I did some counseling with you, which was very, very, very helpful. And look where we are now. Who knew?
I know.
I'm
Amazing.
shocked. See, miracles do
I
happen.
knew.
My
I always
friends.
knew.
You knew? No, I don't know, man. Like, and I've never proclaimed to be recovered, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing the finish line. I do see it.
Yeah.
It's a lot clearer than what it used to be, let me tell you. So let's get right in. I get a lot of questions. I don't know if you get these ones about liquid calories. I look at it as, again, good with bad. Like, I find it easier if you're going to start recovery. I always say just go for liquid calories. It's to me, it doesn't feel like, and when I was in my sickest, it doesn't feel like I'm intaking
Yeah.
drinking something's a lot easier than chewing something and swallow. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, but also it sounds like you're using it in place of, right? So there's a difference between using liquid calories as a meal or a replacer than when you're in recovery and you're adding them and not having them count, right? Because
Right.
it's like Boost and Ensure. And at first, when I had to add those, I would add, oh man, I would buy those. And I was trying not to count calories. So I would be in the Walmart parking lot and I would rip all of the plastic covers off all the Boost and Ensures and throw them away. they were just little white containers. And my family was always like, what are these white containers in here? Like, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And I would have, I kid you not, I had this little measuring thing, and I would take them and put these little plastic cups out, and I would pour the Boost into 3. So they were 3 servings. And I would
Oh,
literally get down at the level of them and measure to make sure they were all even. And then I would have like, yeah, I was nuts. It was insane. I'm sure you can relate to that like feeling of frantic. And it was, it was crazy. I would try to have it in my coffee. Liquid calories were really hard for me because I was only eating a couple vegetables, and I slowly started adding things. And so like when my dietitian would be like, well, you should add a Boost Plus or whatever, can you add this? And I was like, that's a literal Big Mac. It is. I
mm.
always related it to a Big Mac. And I would be like, you're asking me to eat a Big Mac. I can't eat that. That's insane. And she would be like, but you're not eating the Big Mac. I could see that if you were eating the fucking you're not eating the Big Mac. So like, stop comparing it to the Big Mac when you're not eating that either. And it was just really hard for me. And I was doing the Boost and Ensure because I was forced to, right? It was part of my plan. But I struggled with liquid calories. I was adding food slowly. I was adding, I think my first thing was a little bit of cottage cheese. And then I slowly added up. And it wasn't until like 2 years or so into recovery before I had liquid calories outside of those Boosts and Ensures that I was kind of forced to have. And it took a long time. And I can't remember. I think my first liquid calories were, everything I did was scaffolding. So I think it was ice and water and a little fruit, right? Smoothie. And that was it. And stevia, because I was addicted to stevia, and a ton of stevia. And then eventually I would try to add a little more fruit. And then was that like super low calorie cashew milk, right? 25 calorie cashew milk. I would add a splash of that, right? Trying to make like, I was trying in my eating disorder way to add liquid calories in the safest way possible because I didn't want to do it. So like, okay, I'll do it, but I'll do it with all these parameters around it, right? It's how I did everything. I didn't add ice cream. I added anorexic ice cream, and then Arctic Zero, and then Halo Top, and then low calorie ice cream. And then, right, I just like, and it was months on end. And liquid calories was the same from that smoothie, and then slowly and slowly and slowly. And I remember telling my therapist, liquid calories and mayonnaise are going to be the final frontier for me. They're going to be the end because it felt pointless. It felt like a waste. It's like a waste of space. Why would you waste? Why would I drink a milkshake? Or why would I drink a Coke when I could have a burger? What a waste of
Oh, yeah.
calories that is, right? It just feels like a waste. Why would I drink that when I could have a bag of chips? It just feels like a waste. And that is a huge thing to get over. And it took a lot and a long time of just scaffolding ever so slowly, from the small thing and then the smoothie and then adding the fucking bananas. I had the biggest fear of bananas, adding like the smallest little bit of banana into that smoothie. And the amount of bananas that I threw away was embarrassing because I also had to stop baking because I had a big thing where I would bake for everybody all through my eating disorder and cook for everybody. And finally I was like, I don't want to bake and cook for you people. I don't want to do it. And then I started making all my anorexic food. And then in recovery, I started learning how to take care of myself. I cook what I want when I want. I eat my poor husband because he calls it the bait and switch because when he married me, I would like cook for him, all the big Mexican meals, homemade everything, 4-course meals, like all of that. And now I'm just like, I'm not cooking for you tonight. I'm going to eat something out of the freezer. You're going to have to figure it out. It's what I want to do. And liquid calories, just like everything else, were so fucking slow. And the last thing to go was soda, was the Diet Coke to regular Coke and the Americanos to Frappuccinos. I mean, the stepping stone from one to another, huge. And when you have those kind of like ingrained fears, and when you were raised on like Diet Coke, why would you ever drink real Coke when Diet Coke is available? Was kind of the thought in my family. Why would
Mm-hmm.
you do that? And I can remember my girlfriend from California came out to visit, and it was toward the end of my recovery, but I was still very much not recovered. And we did a lot of traveling together, me, her, and her husband. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to match what she eats, right? Not food for food, but like if she eats breakfast, I'm eating breakfast. If she eats a snack, I'm going to eat a snack. Because then maybe I'll, like, through osmosis, right,
Mm.
figure it out. And she sat down and ordered food and a regular Coke. Like, and she's one of those people that would have like regular Coke for instead of coffee in the morning.
Right.
Like, and then she would sit down, and I couldn't do it. I wasn't there yet, and I would order a diet, and then I would literally have a panic attack in front of her and be like, I think they gave me regular. Can you taste it? And she's like, you're bananas. What is wrong with you? What do you mean? Who cares if they gave you regular? What if you can't taste the difference? Then what does it matter? I'm like, no, no, I think they gave me regular. She's like, but if you don't know, then obviously you can't taste the difference. So what is the difference? And I would make her taste it, and she'd be like, "Oh God, that's diet. I can taste the difference." And she
Yeah.
had the whole trip. I made her taste my soda to make sure it was diet. I mean, that's crazy for me to care that much. And it was just so slow. And I can remember I couldn't even. I started with these diet sodas because they don't make them in regular. They're like the Mexican soda. They don't make them in diet. So it's like you don't have that option,
Sure.
right? So when I would get one, I didn't have to make the choice, right? Because I could get that and it didn't weigh on me that the other one was available. So that was like a safer place to start. And then eventually I could try regular Coke, or I remember when I first had regular Dr. Pepper, I was like, oh my God, that's what that tastes like. I had no idea what it tasted like. But it took forever. And then just like the honeymoon phase, when we're eating, I kind of went through that. All of a sudden, when I had my first milkshake, I had every milkshake in town. I have McDonald's and Freddy's and Wendy's, Frosty. Like, I had to go have everybody's milkshakes all the time, every flavor, it was craziness.
No, that's yeah, because I remember because I have to go to my doctor's every 2 weeks, right? And get weighed and all that jazz. And I walked in with my big ass Tim Hortons and I stopped drinking coffee because my gut couldn't take it anymore because that was not good. So I was on to tea, and Tim Hortons has amazing steep tea. And I had real sugar in it instead of like sweet and low or whatever. And I remember looking at my doctor. I'm like, do you know how good tea tastes with real sugar in it?
I've said those
Like
same
there's real
things.
sugar and milk, like real milk, right? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Like I've just found a pot of gold or something. And oh my gosh, I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'll never forget because when we had our conversation and you said, okay, Heather, you have to promise me no more diet stuff. And I did. I went and got real Orco's Greek yogurt, which is amazing. And I was
Hmm.
like, this is what yogurt's supposed to taste like. Because when you get
I
diet
know.
yogurt, I don't care if you're eating diet, like it's runny. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
There's
what
no
is
thickness.
this? And then you go and
Yeah.
have what it's supposed to taste like, like it blows you out of the
Yeah.
water.
And it's more satisfying. And I find that with liquid calories because when people say it's a waste, right? It's a waste to have a Diet Coke, or it's a waste to have a regular Coke when you could eat something else. Why would I have a Coke when I could have a Diet Coke and a burger, right? Same calories. It's like they're forgetting that just like food has a satisfaction level, so do liquid calories. So do things that we drink. So, like, if your brain wants something like a fried chicken sandwich, and instead you give it grilled chicken on a lettuce bun, your brain is not going to be as satisfied. It's going to know, and it's going to know you restricted. If your brain wants a milkshake and you give it the disordered version of a smoothie I was just describing, your brain knows that you just restricted that milkshake and it's not satisfying. But if you feed it the regular Coke or what it's asking for, the satisfaction level will be such that you won't keep seeking out more. Because what people are afraid of, they're like, but if I eat the regular Coke, then I'm going to want this, but then I'm going to eat that, and I'm going to eat too much. But that will happen in the short term. It will. Because your body and brain has to compensate for the restriction. So that will happen in the short term. But eventually what will happen is you will drink the Coke and then you'll be satisfied. Your brain won't keep seeking because you gave it what it was asking for, right? And that's the difference. Liquid calories also have to be satisfied and have a satisfaction level. And they don't have it in place of food. Like my dietitian used to say, liquid calories don't count. You do not write that shit down. That does not count. It's just off. It doesn't count. Because a lot of people, when people say they'll tell me I had this for breakfast, and they'll always include like the Frappuccino or the milky coffee or and I had coffee and cream. I'm like, well, why are you adding that? Why are you telling me that? That wasn't what you ate for breakfast. That's a non thing. That's just something you get because your body wanted it, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you there, because even when I was super sick, I never gave up my International Delight with my coffee. I think I like that stuff more than I actually like the coffee part. But that's one thing that I was always, and if you want to say good at, I never gave that part up. But when I started recovery and started adding, and I would go to Starbucks and get the small one with the what I wanted was the caramel, whatever, frap.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd start small because I didn't know from restricting so long. And you know this too. I don't know if you had this, but you jump all in wanting to do it all. And you're so hungry. You're like, I could eat a football field right now. But the reality is your stomach's so big. Right. So I was really trying not to, because I didn't want to ever go backwards and get ill again, because that's what I'm trying to get out of. So I would start just get toddler sizes and work my way up. Right. And I think that's where too, when people think the version of all in recovery, they're just thinking, all right, we're just going to go to town. But depending on where you are in your eating disorder and what the size your stomach is,
yeah,
you got it.
It's going to look different.
It's going to look different. Yeah. But man,
yeah. I wonder if we all did
so
that
happy.
at Starbucks. I think we all did that. I wonder if everybody does that. You start with the Americano, and then you move to the sugar-free syrup with a little bit of non-fat, and then you move to the taller, from the tall to the grande to the regular sugar to the regular milk, and then pretty soon you're having the venti frappes, and then you're like, but can I get the Trente frappe? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've gotten my Trente iced coffee, trust me. And and there's nothing, stepping stones are great, but you got to get to it. I always too loved I always found eating lunch was always easy for me. And I don't know why. I just have this Kraft peanut butter. I love me. I think that stuff kept me alive. Yeah. The bears. Oh man. And when I could actually, and one day I just remember just sitting down with the jar. I'm like, yeah. Take out the middleman.
Yeah. I think a lot of us go through that too. I had an easier time with later meals because part of my disorder was I didn't eat until after work at 4. And then I would have a little snack. And then I even got to the point where I would have a vegetable for a snack. And then right before bed, I would reward myself with a 250 calorie TV dinner. And I remember, this is awful. Oh man, the eating disorder is horrible. I would sit in bed with my kid, who was a teenager, and I would have my little TV dinner, right? The one thing I get to eat, the one warm food. I look forward to it all day, as most of us do. And she would sit next to me. She's like, "Ooh, can I have some?" And I would just die inside. But half of me would die inside and be like, "Oh man, this is the one thing I get. This is my one." And then the other half of me is my eating disorder, "Ooh, every bite she eats, that's a calorie you're not going to get," right? So it was this total, yes and no kind of thing. And of course I always said
Yeah.
yes, and she would eat some and I would eat some, and like it would just be this part of me would just be so sad. Like I just wanted to cry because this was the one thing I got to eat. And then the other part of me was like, that's a good thing actually, because now she's eating it and you're not going to get it in you. And like, it was just, oh man. And so it was always a little bit easier for me to like incorporate that food at the end of the night, because eventually I upped my little food I had at the end of the night, and then I could have actual dinner, and then I started sitting with my family. It was the hardest for me was moving it forward, was trying to eat at lunch, trying to eat at work. I mean, trying to eat around other humans when you've never in your life eaten around other humans. Like that was tough. Trying to eat at work. And one of the first things I did at work was trying to eat safe food. And I remember eating like cottage cheese and safe food in the break room. And everyone else was eating the pizza that was brought in. And someone commented on my food, like the custodian. He said something like, "Oh, you're not eating pizza, you're eating that." And I just remember shrinking, just shrinking into myself and just being like, it took so fucking much for, I used to leave at lunch and sit in my car and go home because I didn't want to be around people. And then I would just sit in there with like my Americano or whatever and just sit around people. And then I finally got the nerve up to eat safe food. And then to have someone comment on it, like I just wanted to die. It was the
Oh man.
worst. And then to slowly work up to eating around people again was huge. And then moving that food earlier and earlier. And of course, breakfast, which is now my favorite meal of the day, absolutely was the worst for me. It was, I fought it for fucking years. I was like, no, I'm not eating breakfast. People, why do you have to eat breakfast? Why do we have to eat breakfast? Why? I hate breakfast. Why are people eating breakfast? So many people don't even, I don't even know anybody that eats breakfast. My husband eats breakfast. But who eats breakfast? Nobody eats breakfast. Why do I have to eat breakfast? Like, I fought it. And we have to eat
Yeah,
breakfast.
and let's maybe talk about that. So when you did all in, I did all in, and I learned from you to go on a schedule every 2 hours. And I did pretty good. And then let's talk the night eating when that hits, and then having to eat breakfast the next morning.
Yeah, that is the worst. And my night eating was all through the time I was sick as well. It started toward the end of my eating disorder. I just think my body was trying to compensate, and I would wake up and oh man, I wouldn't eat all day. I would eat my little TV dinner, and then I would wake up at like 3 a.m. And I tried baby gates, and I tried locks, and I tried alarms, and I tried putting bells on the covers, and I tried everything to keep me out of that food. And I would go in there and I would get that ice cream, and I would sit there with a fork even or a spoon or whatever. I was like in a trance. And my teenagers would be in there, as teenagers are, right, at 3 a.m., and they'd be videoing me and taking pictures and laughing or whatever. I'm just sitting there in my trance eating. And then I would eat again at 5 or at 4 in the morning. Like I couldn't control it. And then I'd have to wake up in the morning and eat breakfast. And I remember telling my dietitian all the time, I think that should count for breakfast. It was like
Yeah,
4 a.m. Why
I
can't it
woke
count for
up.
breakfast? It's in the a.m. hours. It was just 2 hours ago. Why can't I count it? And I was so pissed. And it took so long. And so many people think when they eat that breakfast, then the next night they might not night eat. And it took months of crossover for me. Months. Months of eating that breakfast anyway. And I remember I used to sit there with that breakfast and I'd be pissed. And it was my Weetabix phase. I would order Weetabix on Amazon because for some reason, all the what I eat in a day, girlies always ate Weetabix. I don't know. So I thought I needed to get Weetabix. So I started eating Weetabix. And it's not the most amazing thing in the world, but I
No,
ate
I
it.
was going to say I got it. I didn't like it.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I was eating it with my 25 calorie cashew milk, and I would sit there and eat my Weetabix and be pissed off that I had to do it. And I would put my phone there, and I would beg my kid to get up and eat with me, and they weren't a breakfast eater, so they didn't get up. So then I'm just sitting there by myself and my phone, and I remember I tried watching recovery videos, and then I even got into a phase where I watched like Tana Mongeau for a while. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And nothing made it easier and nothing made it better. Like a lot of people say, how did you do it? What made nothing? Nothing made it better for me. No amount of distraction, of TV, of YouTube, of anything made breakfast better. Just repetition, repetition, feeling like shit, doing it anyway. Feeling like shit, doing like anyway. That's what Megsy Recovery used to say a lot. She'd be like, feel like shit, do it anyway. Feel like shit, do it
Yeah.
anyway, you know? And I remember watching her drink venti frappuccinos, making a video in her car, and I'd be like, man, how are you doing that? How are you drinking that? How are you drinking that? But just like the what I eat in a day is, when I went to order that first frappuccino, I was like, if she could do it, I could do it. If she could do it, I could do
Yeah. Yeah. And I think not a lot of people talk about like the night eating. I remember like you're so exhausted, and the
it.
exhaustion you
Oh
get
man.
when you start eating disorder recovery. I will say this, and I know this is bad. I kind of miss the energy I used to have when I was ill because
Mm-hmm.
I'm still tired, and it's been a year
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, what is going on? The amount I never saw that one coming.
Mm-hmm.
The exhaustion that you feel like no, but
Yeah.
you will get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and raid the freezer like a rabid raccoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my brown muffin stage from Safeway, who have the best brown muffins, and butter. I couldn't even tell you the last time I had butter. When butter came back into my life, oh my God. And as Canadian and it's $7 for a brick, I was going through a lot of butter.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't I and like clockwork, you could set your watch to it. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
dead asleep. Nope, need a brown muffin.
Yep.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes
you
I'm
got to
still
do it.
surprised, sometimes I'm still, I don't know if I'll ever get over the thankfulness that I have now of like just those little things of waking up in the morning and realizing I didn't eat last night. I didn't wake up and eat. Not having a drawer of sugar-free snacks by my bed because I'm fed and I don't need a drawer of snacks by my bed anymore, right? Because if I want to eat, I can just get up and go eat, you know? And all of those little things that I never thought I would be thankful for, that I'm thankful for now, And my poor husband, I tell him stuff like that all the time. I'm like, I'm just eating. Can you believe I'm just eating? Babe, I'm just eating. Babe, I'm just eating. Like, I never thought it would happen that I could just eat, you know? And it's awful because you have to go through like walking through fire, right? Because you don't think you're going to come out. You think you're going to live in that crossover time forever. You think you're going to eat at night and all day, forever. You always think you're going to be that unicorn, right? Always. And you might be that unicorn if you keep going back, because then you're going to be in quasi recovery forever, you know?
So, can you explain what that is? Quasi recovery?
Quasi recovery. Quasi recovery is like, it's just like we were talking about when you're gaining a pound and you're gaining a pound. But if you're going a little too fast and you gain that pound, you might freak out and go back. Then you're going to gain that pound and you're going to go back. So a lot of people think when I gain that pound, I need to gain the next, need to gain. It's okay to move and stop and move and stop, right? But what happens for some of us is we live in this area of like back and forth. And a lot of people say, why am I stuck? I can't seem to get to the finish. And it's like, well, you're going too fast then. You're making too many big moves. And so quasi recovery is when you're stuck in the middle. You're not as disordered as you were, but you're not recovered. And if you've been there too long, you need to fucking figure out why. So many people are like, I'm stuck in quasi recovery. I can't get out. Like, I'm not as bad as I was. I'm working now. I used to not be able to work. Now I'm working, or I'm going back to school and I'm not an inpatient, whatever. So I'm here. I'm not back there. I'm here, but I'm not recovered. But I'm here. So I'm not as bad as I was. Well, that's quasi recovery. That's where you are. So now you have to figure out how to get there, right? Nobody can figure that out for you. That's your job. And so many people are like, I'm
Oh.
stuck. What do I do? I'm stuck. What do you do? What are you stuck on? Are you afraid of weight gain? Are you afraid of calories? Are you fucking still weighing yourself? You got to be honest, because nobody's going to get you to the end but you. That's your job, right? It's that thing of like, triggers are up to you. Well, what's triggering you? What's keeping you there? Is the weight gain triggering you? What is it? And then you have to, if it's weight gain, commit to gaining just 1 more pound, just one more, and then stay there for a month if you have to. Don't lose that pound, and then
Hmm.
gain the next. If it's calories, add 25 more calories, add 10, and then keep that, and then move again. But a lot of people are like, oh, I went back, and then a little, and then back, and then they don't ever go forward. But that's their job. That's your job. That's not my job. That's
Mm-hmm.
not Heather's job, right? Like you can ask, you can say, I used to ask my dietitian, my therapist, I read all the books from Tabitha, but they're not there. They're not there with
Yeah.
me in the scale. They can't walk in my house and throw the scale away. We can ask people to help us, but it comes down to us. I remember asking my kid, I have a exercise bike in here right now, and that's how you know you're recovered because I don't even want to get on that thing. My husband has to do it for therapy. But I had one and I was addicted when I was sick. I got rid of it. I thought I was recovered about a year and a half into recovery, and I begged my husband for another one, and he bought me one. And rabbit wheel all over again. I got on that thing, 5 minutes more, 5 minutes more. Pretty soon, I couldn't control it. I had to go more and more every day. I was like, oh no, I'll just use it 20 minutes a day. Well, that did not happen. And then I had to
Yeah.
explain to my husband why we had to get rid of it. And he couldn't understand. He's like, what do you mean? You just begged me for it. What do you mean you got to get rid of it?
Yeah.
And I had to get my youngest kid, and I took the cord and I gave it to her. And I said, please hide it. I need you to hide it. I can't control it right now. And she hid it good because every time they weren't home,
You went looking.
I searched his house
Yeah.
everywhere. They hid it really well. Yeah. But it's my job. It was my job when I was stuck. That was quasi recovery, I suppose, for me, right? Like I thought I could do it. I thought I could get the bike, but I couldn't get the bike. And I could have went backwards, but instead I took that and I said, take it. I can't control myself. This bike's got to go. I got to move forward. And that's your job to get out of quasi recovery.
Right. I'd show you my treadmill, but I can't move my camera. It's buried. Like it's buried. I'll
Yeah.
send you a
Yeah.
picture.
Like a
It's
coat
like
rack.
beyond buried.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like there's no getting to that, man.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So since we're talking about exercise, I can guess your thought, but exercise in recovery.
Yeah. That's a tough one. So many, and it's a touchy subject because it's a touchy subject because people fucking love
Mhm.
exercise, right? It makes
Mhm.
me feel good. It makes me feel good. But here's the thing when you have an eating disorder, you know this, you have a neurotransmitter in your brain. We all do. That's responsible for you seeking out movement. Okay. When you have an eating disorder, that neurotransmitter is abnormally raised. That's why we seek out too much movement. And it's raised like that because we need to migrate through the famine, because it's an evolutionary adaptation telling us to move, because we have to move for survival. It's a survival mechanism, and that's why it feels primal. If you continue to move, logically, it's not going to lower, right? That's just logical common sense. So you cannot continue to move your body and think that that neurotransmitter is going to come down. Now, weight gain will help it come down because weight gain is going to help all of those things. So, does everyone have to completely stop moving? I'm not going to tell you anybody what's right or not right for your body. I will tell you it's a bad decision. I hear some people say, well, I'm only lifting weights. Well, we both know that every time you lift that weight, you're like, ooh, that might be 2 calories. Ooh, there's 2 calories. We know. Our brains associate all of that shit with calories and feeding. So some people are like, well, I'm just, gonna reward this person and that with an eating disorder, we're just gonna take a walk together because they like to walk. That's not a reward for someone with an eating disorder. Working out's not a reward for someone with an eating disorder. Walking is not. A reward for someone with an eating disorder is let's sit on the couch and watch a movie together. Let's
Let's
sit
go get
with
a milkshake.
popcorn. Yes. Like let's take a drive and look at
Yeah.
nature, right? It's not walking, it's not lifting weights. There is no safe exercise in recovery. And I think Tabitha too says you need to wait over a year, right? Like a year and a half. And how you know when you're ready is because you won't want to do it. Right? And everybody has a different level of what's normal for that neurotransmitter. And mine is low because I don't want to work out anymore. And I don't know what your exercise component was like, but mine was insane. I lived in the gym. I was there morning, noon, and night. I was there on Easter. I would leave my family. I specifically got a gym that was 24 hours a day and 365 days a year open, because I would go on holidays, I would go after birthdays, I would go all the time. I was addicted. And the day that I quit the gym, I sat in my car and I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. Although they were thankful, I'm sure, because I looked very sick and I know they thought I was going to die at any moment in there and they were going to be like health viable. So I think they were glad I left. But then you know what I did? I went home and I ran up and down my stairs 1,000 times because of that, like compulsion, the baby steps, right? But could I stay at the gym and lower that neurotransmitter? No, it would never work. And a lot of people don't realize that our brains connect exercise, movement, working out with feeding. That's the connection, because when you have an eating disorder, you have the movement component and you have the aversion to food component, right? And you have the body dysmorphia component. You hallucinate fat stores on your body. Those things are all intertwined. And so sometimes people think, well, it's okay if they lift weights with me, or it's okay if we just take a walk, but they don't have an eating disorder. They don't understand that for that human, that's not just a walk. That's not just lifting weights. It is combined with the body and with the feeding. It's all intertwined in that hormonal and neurotransmitter makeup in your brain that's dysregulated.
Yeah, and I never had a gym pass and I never did any of that. I did for a time. I have like a workout video, or I go for walks. The good thing about living in Vancouver, it rains 364 days of the year. So walking is few and far between. But when I first started recovery, I was working out and I knew why I was doing it, because I thought, well, if I'm going to eat, I'm going to burn something. And then, like you're not going to eat it anyway.
Yep.
But so you're just burning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this isn't working. And I did that. I still haven't exercised. Because I thought every day I think I'd like to go for a walk. And I think, okay, am I going to go for a walk and take the corgi who can only walk so fast because she's a corgi, and not at my 36, like my 5'10" legs can take me? And are we leisurely going to walk? Am I going to want to beat my time from last week? Because that's what, and so far still haven't got.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I have a Scottish
and
Terrier.
I do.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I do like going for a walk, and I do like get out and vitamin D and sun, but it's just raining and snowing here, so I don't want no part of that.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see what happens in April when the spring comes, right? But
yeah.
I don't mind because I hunch a lot. I don't mind like a gentle moving just to stretch out my body, but
yeah, even yoga got obsessive for me. Even yoga
see, and
was like,
and I'm like, why am I doing it? Am I doing it because I am hunchbacking, or am I doing it? So
I would be like yoga,
we'll see.
Then I would be like yoga, heavy duty yoga, then I'd be like yoga for weight loss, then I'd be like, and then my therapist was like, you need to do yoga with pillows and blankets. If there's a pillow and a blanket in the yoga, that's the only yoga you could do. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. So I mean, well, I'm with you. I think a year of everything is fully committed, all in 1 year, fully committed, no movement for a year. I think everything takes a year.
Yeah.
For at least for things to start
yeah.
making sense in your brain. I don't know.
And a lot of people say, and it's a year from the time when you're eating like unrestricted, because a lot of people, I talk to someone on Instagram a lot, and they're always like, but I've been in recovery 6 years. And I'm like, like, I hear you, shouldn't I be over this? I can exercise now. It's been 6 years. I'm like, well, if you went on all in for 2 months and then you restricted for 3 months and then you went all in, that you can't say it's been 6 years, because it hasn't been 6 years, right? You've been waffling for 6 years. So you just have to be careful that you're ready, right?
Yeah, it's all like and being, I mean, and really it boils down to like, you gotta be honest with
Yeah,
yourself, right? Like
absolutely. Hallelujah.
you,
Yeah.
right? Like you are the only one that can fix this. And,
Yeah.
it depends how bad, like, do you want to fix it? Do you want to
Yeah.
go backward? And what's the worst case scenario? You don't exercise for a year.
Yeah.
You'll live.
You're gonna watch a
Trust
lot
me.
of really good shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, watch some Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and one quick question. What are your thoughts on how to get rid of our little quirks, as I call them? And I always say like eat like a eat like a toddler. I don't mean in portion size, but I mean a certain cup, a certain spoon,
Yeah.
measuring
Yeah.
cups.
So I was the
What are
same.
your
Yeah, I was the same. I had my own spoon, had my own fork. They were gold so that nobody else would use them. I changed the color of them. Had my own cup. I could only drink out of ceramic, not glass. Had my own plates. I preferred paper, plastic, right? I had my own shelf. I still have my own shelf. And I once even asked my therapist, I was like, or what, I need to fix this. I feel like it's not okay. And she was like, why? Why do you need to fix that? Is it bothering you? Is it bothering other people? Is it affecting your life? So, like, I think it comes down to if it bothers you, challenge it. If it doesn't bother you, who fucking cares? Right? I still have my own snack shelf. You know why? I'm sick of people fucking eating my snacks. And when I want to go eat my Oreos, I want them there, right? Stay out of my fucking snacks. My husband has one, I have one, and my kid has one. Literally, we all have a shelf. But also, I was always feeling really bad that I couldn't share a straw with anybody. So I told Lou one day, I was like, Lou, I got to get over this straw thing because it's weird. I know it's a weird thing and I don't like it. I want to be able to share a drink with you. If you want to drink my milkshake, I don't want to be like, ooh, now I can't have it. So I told Lou we needed to challenge it. And then I would be drinking something and Lou would just drink out of it. And I tell you, I thought I was going to lose my shit the first few times it happened. And a couple times I couldn't drink after it. But I wanted to get over it. I wanted to challenge it. It was affecting me. It was affecting them. That was something that bothered me. I challenged it. I got over it. We can share a straw now, right? So it
mm-hmm.
just depends. Is it affecting you eating enough? Challenge it. If it's something that doesn't matter, do you like a certain, spoon because it's a tiny toddler spoon? Okay, that's disordered, right? We all know that. That's a huge thing in the community. You should probably challenge that. It's also sometimes an autism thing or an ADHD thing. And then who fucking cares? So if it bothers you, if it's affecting your feeding, your eating, your recovery, challenge it. If it's not, don't. But again, just like you said it, it comes down to being honest with yourself. It comes down to why you're doing it, right? Is it
Mm-hmm.
disordered? Or is it just because you want your own spoon? Is it just because you're sick of going in there and there's never the right size one that you like? Is it because you like drinking out of a coffee cup because it has a handle and then you're sick of everybody taking it and so you want it in there for you? Or is it because that coffee cup means something to you and you just like it so you don't want anybody else drinking out of it, right? So there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of reasons, but you just have to be honest. And I used to freak out and think that everything was disordered. And then when my therapist was like, who fucking cares? If you're eating enough and you're gaining the weight, that's what I care about. That's what she said. If you're eating enough and you're gaining the weight and you're hitting full recovery, that's what matters. Those other things, when you're fully recovered, they'll fix themselves. If they were disordered and you're going to gain enough and eat enough, those things are going to fix themselves if they were in fact part of your, disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if they're not affecting you, your husband, your kids, who cares? But if it bothers you, if you're just like, that feels weird, it feels icky, it feels wrong, I don't want to just use that spoon, then challenge it, then fix it.
Okay. Yeah, because I made a video about my shelf, and that's it. I have boys, man. If I don't like hide stuff, it's gone, and I don't
Yeah,
even think that they taste it. Honestly, they just
yeah.
unhinge their jaw and throw it down.
I know. So then you're like, come on, man, I would have really enjoyed
Right? Like that's the only
that.
thing I want. Like if I don't eat it within like 5 seconds of it's coming in the house, I ain't getting it.
I know, same.
So,
Yeah, I can so relate.
so yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today,
Absolutely. It was fun.
and I can't thank you enough. This was amazing.
It was fun.
I
I
hope
enjoyed it.
to
I
have you
loved it,
back.
and
I
you're
hope I
amazing. And
Oh, thank
I
you.
love that you're doing this podcast. Amazing things.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I hope you come back.
That's all for this episode of 1% Better. To continue the conversation, head over to our website at www.1percentbetter.ca, where you can access more stories and resources. We'd also love it if you subscribed and left us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And remember, friends, progress takes patience, perspective, and sometimes a little help from people who get it. So be kind to yourself and others as we work to get 1% better every day. We'll see you back here next week.